Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. How's everybody doing?
Better now that we're all together.
Nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you too, Ryan. Save Sagar. We could have Griffin play the role of Sagar. I feel like that could be fun.
Dangerous.
Give me at least 24 hours to prepare.
You got to get into character for that one.
This is on the spot.
There are a lot of things that we could potentially get to today. There's an Alan Dershowitz clip that I'm enamored with, where he's desperately trying to get some pierogies on Martha's Vineyard and being shut down, much to the crowd's roaring approval. We've got a great Josh Shapiro clip that I am similarly obsessed with, where he tries to film this fake Zoran video, and it's just embarrassing all the way around. But the thing we're for sure going to get to here to start with is the security cabinet in Israel has officially voted on their, what I would call their official genocide plan, ethnic cleansing plan, all out in the open at this point to completely displace Palestinians from Gaza, starting with Gaza City. Ryan, I can pull this tear sheet up on the screen, but do you want to just break down for people what this vote was about and what it means going forward?
Yeah, so Netanyahu put his new plan to the security cabinet last night, early morning Israel time, and over the objections of the military and some other elements of the political echelon, they approved it by what we understand to be a fairly narrow margin. And so the plan will begin with Israeli forces attempting to seize total control of Gaza City, the largest city kind of in the northernmost up north in Gaza, which is home now to tens of thousands of people living in tents and crowding into apartments and homes that haven't yet been destroyed, or living in kind of rubble-strewn areas. You have this massive section of the Al-Mawasi coast that they call a safe zone that they bomb all the time, but it does not have the entire population. You have a significant amount of the Palestinian population of Gaza still living in the stretch from Khan Yunis to Gaza City. And this is Netanyahu's attempt, or his claim, that he's going to take over basically all of Gaza, but he's going to start in Gaza City. And near there is where they suspect that some of the remaining hostages are being held. And so the objections from the security cabinet that opposed this plan were, on the one hand, the reserve forces are not ready. They're tired. They're not well trained. They're almost 2 years into this, to these, to going in and out, which, interesting, if you think about it, there has been zero R&R for Palestinian fighters. There have been no trips to Greece, no trips to Brazil, no weekends anywhere. Setting that aside, they also argued it's going to lead to international isolation, that it's going to, that the Palestinian death toll that will result from this is not a problem, from the Israeli military's perspective per se, but it is a problem of optics. And if too many people are killed and too much additional devastation is brought to Gaza Strip, that this will lead to further international isolation, and also that it's just difficult to do. There was some reporting that if they're not going to get a full depopulation of Gaza Strip, which they may be going for, but if they're not going to get a full depopulation of the Gaza Strip, they said it would take about 5 years to turn it into an occupied territory a la the West Bank. But the West Bank is extraordinarily expensive to occupy, very resource intensive, and there are still estimated to be 30 to 40,000 resistance fighters under arms in Gaza that have an endless supply of explosives from unexploded Israeli ordnance that they keep dropping on Gaza, that then 5% or so of which doesn't explode. So those are the objections, and Netanyahu
is there a concern about the captives too?
Yes. They're arguing that this would get the captives killed.
Yeah.
That in that, at least in that one situation that we know of, there were Israeli forces operating near, it was Ori Goldberg and others, operating near those captives, and their captors killed them as the IDF got close. And so Hamas has said publicly, like if Israel tries to take them by force, and if there's no other way for the captors to kind of flee, that those are the orders. And so the hostage families, their level of alarm has gone through the roof over this. That they believe that Netanyahu is just sacrificing the lives of the hostages to keep this going.
Well, let's hear from the horse's mouth here. This is Netanyahu. Okay, go for it.
Real quick before we get to that, Ryan, I wanted to ask you about that piece about the possibility for additional isolation, international isolation. And you flagged this. This is pretty surprising. Germany says they're going to stop arms sales to Israel that could be used in a Gaza after takeover plan approved. I mean, the U.S. doesn't seem interested at all in any sort of isolation or distancing from Israel, at least not this administration. But do these sorts of things from the rest of the world, do they matter? Do you think that there will be more international isolation?
I think yes. I think it doesn't, hinder their ability to launch this operation in the today or tomorrow or the next day. But absolutely, like if you have lost Germany, then you have gone around the bend. Germany, it's basically illegal to criticize Israel inside of Germany. And so if the German government, which they did overnight, says that we are going to suspend shipments of weapons, that goes a little bit beyond the symbolic gestures that have been made, and it moves closer to the predictions by the military echelon, which say we are on course for international isolation, and that will have genuine consequences long term.
Yeah. Griffin, go ahead with Netanyahu sat down with Fox News for a lengthy interview, like 30 minutes, and there were a lot of extraordinary moments. So what's this first one we've got here, Griff?
So this first one is just the announcement that he's going to be occupying Gaza fully.
You will go immediately into a meeting with your security cabinet. Will Israel take control of all of Gaza?
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance. That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel. That's what we want to do. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas.
Emily, one of the things I was thinking about is, if me or Ryan or another lefty at the beginning said they're going to out in the open announce that they're going to occupy all of Gaza, that all of Gaza will be destroyed, that all, however many people in Gaza City will be pushed out into these quote unquote central camps, that there will be an announced mass starvation campaign. I think people would have, people did think that we were crazy for suggesting that was what was really going on. And now here we are, step by step by step, we've gotten to this place where Netanyahu can just go on Fox News and openly announce it. And still there will be plenty of Americans who deny the very actions that the Israeli government is openly announcing.
When he's using it's interesting. He's using the language of liberation. Not surprising that he's using that language, but it's interesting that's how he's trying to frame what would have been, I think, you're right to say, would have been treated like a ludicrous solution early in the war. And the other part, I mean, all of this, he said he wants to install a civilian government that is free of Hamas. The beginning of the war, the plan was to destroy Hamas. So what is in all seriousness, what does he think? Does he think he has just made it, or he's about to make it much more likely that you get a civilian government that, it wants to coexist peacefully next to Israel after what's happened in the last couple of years? Does he think right now, just from a realistic standpoint, that is more likely? I mean, we know it was interesting to see him with that grin on his face in the Bill Hemmer interview that Griffin just played a clip from. He doesn't believe in a two-state solution. He doesn't want a successful, robust civilian government in Gaza. He doesn't want that. He's pretty clear about that. So
he spent his career making sure that is an impossibility.
So you then have to ask the question, what is he really doing?
I think when he says civilian, and he alludes to it in other places, he calls it a Palestinian Arab coalition. So basically, what he has always been hoping for is that he can persuade basically the UAE or Saudi Arabia to create a new Palestinian Authority, except even absent Palestinians, that is just a mercenary authority that is a subcontractor for Israel that would then put a kind of Arab face on an occupation. Like that's it. That's his hope.
Yeah, and I think it's really important here to point out too that, you know, the West Bank, the occupation authority, the Palestinian Authority, is basically collaborators. You know, they are very quote unquote
legally
moderate.
and
Absolutely. And that has not spared the West Bank from IDF and Israeli government sanctioned violence, land theft, outright murder by settlers that were just let free to run wild. And, you know, we had Jasper Nathaniel on, who did a great job of breaking down what's happening in the West Bank, where he says annexation is all but complete. It's effectively complete at this point in terms of Israel having total control of all of the space of the West Bank. So, you know, there's always this idea, oh, well, if it wasn't Hamas, if it was just someone more moderate and, you know, without the armed resistance, then we could all live in peace and cohabitate together. But the West Bank really exposes the lie of that. And I think it also exposes the broader, greater Israel plan, as do all the bombings in Syria and Lebanon and elsewhere, that, you know, the grand plan is to basically make it so that Palestinians don't exist in the region or don't exist as any sort of effective force that could even have a chance at self-determination. And while we've all been focused on Gaza, understandably, that program is also proceeding apace in the West Bank, which is why I think it's really important that you keep your eye there too, because only when you have your eye on the entire region and all of the Israeli actions can you really see the sort of totality of what they're engaged in here. And we've talked about this before. I think, Emily, you and I talked about this, and you made a great point about how and by the way, you made some great points in your monologue this week too, with American opinion among the voters turning hard against Israel, especially among younger generations, they're like, we're going for it now. And they are going for it now. And Griffin, do you want to pull up with the full backing of the Trump administration for this?
Has President Trump given the green light for your plan to take over the remaining 25% of Gaza and occupy all of it?
Well, you know, he understands that it's Israel who's going to do the fighting. It's not American soldiers.
Did he give you a yes?
Well, he just says, I know Israel will do what it has to do, and we haven't got into that kind of discussion. But we have gotten into a discussion on two things. One, the humanitarian surge that we're going to do, which will precede our final military action, because I want the population to be in safe zones, to have food, water, sewage, electricity, medical help. I want to free 2 million Gazans from Hamas terrorism.
So there you go. And we've got plenty, Ryan, of reporting from behind the scenes about how Trump, there'll be a classic Barack Ravid, like, Trump was troubled by this photo or that thing. But ultimately, he tells Netanyahu, you're going to do what you got to do.
And also, depending on the aid that is surged in, there could be enormous medical complications that come from that, because you now have, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of people who have gone past the stages of malnutrition where they now need, you know, genuine medical treatment for that malnutrition, that their bodies are not going to recover just from being given pasta. And so if they surge in like an enormous amount of pasta, say, or lentils, or and people who are starving, like eat a huge, you know, meal or eat as much as they can for 24 hours, you know, that can have fatal complications as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this situation is developing as it is. Before we get to Netanyahu, there's one other piece from the negotiations that I think is actually complementary to all this, and I can put this up. This is an AP report that came out overnight, which says that there's a new framework for a long-term ceasefire that is being kicked around by Egypt and Qatar. Our reporting is that Hamas has not seen any of this. and that this is basically a Witkoff project. It's kind of Witkoff reviving this project. So what he's proposing is that all of the hostages would be released at once in exchange for full Israeli withdrawal, a version of a full Israeli withdrawal, plus an end, permanent end to the war. And the way that they would try to split this question of Hamas disarming is they would, quote unquote, have Hamas freeze its weapons, though they would keep their weapons but not use them, which seems actually fine from Hamas's perspective, because that's what a ceasefire is anyway. You're going to have your weapons, but you're not going to use them.
Supposed to use them, yeah.
And then there would be some type of civilian-led reconstruction of Gaza that would then evolve into, Hamas dissolving and a new Palestinian leadership would take over, which is in line with what Hamas has said that they would accept for a long-term ceasefire. So I don't think this will happen because it's too close to what Hamas is actually willing to do. But this is just people should know this is what's kicking around and may get to Hamas, in the next several days or a week, and then in the past, as this happened, as soon as they get it, like Israel says that they're rejecting it, but it was actually Hamas that rejected it.
Gotcha. What do we have next, Griffin, from Netanyahu?
Well, speaking of surging humanitarian aid, my question was, is this like the humanitarian aid where like 100 people get shot a day? Is this the humanitarian aid where we like crush people with airdrops, which we've been seeing every single day?
Well, Trump is talking about expanding the number of aid sites. In order to not have people get killed every single day, you'd have to not shoot at them with automatic weapons and tanks.
Maybe have some signs instead of shoot at them directionally. Yeah.
Controversial.
And you need more aid sites and you need more aid. And so those are things that Trump is saying he will do. He's not saying that he would demilitarize it, but it is still using aid in line with the military strategy. As you heard him say, basically what they're going to try to do is say, look, you need to get out of Gaza City, and there will be no aid sent into Gaza City, but there will be there will be more aid distribution sites, and they'll be here, X, Y, and Z on the map. So go here, get out of Gaza City, go here. Mm-hmm. And so I suspect that if they do launch this plan, they will in fact significantly accelerate the amount of aid getting in order to entice people to get out of the kind of tent encampments in Gaza City, so they can go in and flatten it as much as possible.
Well, here's Netanyahu directly talking about these killings at the aid stations. Let's take a listen.
Experience inside Gaza this week. We went to an aid distribution site, food distribution site. Your own soldiers have been accused of killing innocent Gazans who are in line for food. That's the accusation, almost on a daily basis. Can you defend that?
Yeah, I could deny it because it's a Hamas accusation. They're the ones often who are doing the shooting and waiting for our soldiers to respond. And in fact, very often they don't respond. But all these stories are repeated ad nauseum, and the people don't even bother to check the facts. We're doing everything that we can to avoid civilian casualty. And in fact, if you look at it, I mean, the town of Rafah that you saw all that, right?
All of it.
Right, okay. So I told you why there was devastation, because we moved the population out and then went to and dealt with the booby traps that were there. And we killed a lot of terrorists there. You know how many civilians we killed there? Practically none. Why? Because we told them, please leave. We showered them with leaflets. We called them millions of text messages and many other means to get them out, and they walked out.
And, we can see what Rafah looks like today. It looks like the surface of the moon, which is ideally what they want, right? Just flatten the whole place.
That was a red line. That was a red line for Biden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you cannot go into Rafah. Also, we know, everyone in the world knows they killed 15 medics in Rafah. So for him to say we killed almost nobody,
they just
people who don't even know anything about Gaza are like, wait, didn't you kill? Don't we know 15 medics that you killed?
I mean, this is one of the things that has been wild. Is I've long been knowing that the Israeli government lies, but the brazen nature of it. I mean, we don't have to play the clip, but he referenced it there. We didn't demolish all these buildings. Hamas booby-trapped them all.
But at the same time, he acknowledges putting explosives in the buildings and setting them off.
Right. to destroy the booby traps. But it was Hamas. It was Hamas's. I mean, it's just like.
And Hamas, according to him, walks 10 to 15 kilometers to these aid sites, concealing weapons.
Right.
Then pulls out their weapons, starts shooting at GHF contractors in order to bait them into shooting at the Palestinians. And then they hide their weapons and go 10 to 15 kilometers through the desert again, never get caught.
And nobody sees it, right?
And nobody's ever seen it.
Witnesses of anything.
They have no drone footage of this anywhere.
Even though GHF soldiers shot or wounded or attacked.
And we know from people like Anthony Aguilar that this is, it's not as though they're getting orders
GHF has
to
cameras
fire
everywhere,
on Hamas.
as Aguilar said. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting orders to fire warning shots, quote unquote warning shots.
It clashes with their propaganda. These are supposedly warning shots. Now he's saying that they're actually returning fire at Hamas. It's like you can't keep your own story straight.
Right.
I mean, you've been beefing with Bill Ackman online over this starvation denial, which is really disgusting. You know, Time Magazine published a photo of hungry people standing there at a charity kitchen, jostling each other with their whatever pots they have to try to get the meal that's being offered, and they used a photograph of that photographer taking a picture as somehow evidence that this was staged. Mm-hmm. And like, how does the fact, yes, a photographer took a picture of a thing that was happening and you have a picture of that photographer. How, in what world is this evidence of it being staged? And you flagged, Ryan, there's a video of this same site where you have people mobbing it and climbing up onto poles and whatever they can to try to jostle and get position so that they can get a hot meal. And so you're like, okay, are you going to retract this? And of course he does. Well, I'll delete it, but you just can't tell. And it's the child that is clearly starving to death. The New York Times featured, among others, by the way, who happens to also have another medical condition. And these things are used as evidence. There's no starvation. Everyone's fine. You people you're just lying. And it's just extraordinary. I mean, talk to any of the doctors that we've spoken to, talk to Anthony Aguilar, talk to Palestinians themselves, listen to the Israeli government's announcements of what they're doing. Look at the Wall Street Journal's chart of how there's no food aid coming in for months at a time. And then we're supposed to believe, and the fact that, the doctor we talked to last week, she said we weren't even allowed to bring in baby formula. But yet we're supposed to believe everyone's healthy and thriving, and that the only person who's starving the entire Gaza Strip is an Israeli hostage.
And I think maybe this metaphor could help people like Bill Ackman reflect on what they're doing. For decades, there has been this strain of Holocaust denialism that tries to sound reasonable, but for its reasonableness is almost more deplorable and more despicable. And one of the things you'd often hear these types of Holocaust denialists say is, Anne Frank actually died of typhus.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And whenever I would hear somebody say that, like, okay, mental note, you're a complete scumbag, and I don't ever have to listen to anything else that you say. And you know what? It's true. It is true that in the deplorable conditions that she was in the concentration camp, this teenager died of typhus. The implication of that is that somehow what you're saying about Anne Frank is a little too aggressive, and we need to contextualize it a bit in the fact that disease also played a role in some of the Holocaust. It's like nobody with any moral compass would entertain that for 5 seconds. Yes, she died of typhus. She was killed by the Nazis. She was hunted and killed by the Nazis, and anybody that can't agree with that is a Holocaust denier. So to say, this child that died of malnutrition also had a comorbidity is Holocaust denialism. Your moral compass is absolutely spinning out of control. At the beginning of a famine, pretty much everybody who dies of starvation and malnutrition is going to have some type of comorbidity. And that is such an obvious statement that only complete imbeciles and people without a moral compass would say otherwise. Obviously, the people who are sick are going to fare worse in a famine than people who are healthy. So for the New York Times to come out and say, well, we learned that this person had another illness as well. And so, we're sorry that we highlighted this person's plight, is Holocaust denialism. And it's outrageous. And now, like you said, there's this clip of Netanyahu saying he's going to sue. You have this one here?
Oh, yeah. Listen, yeah, we got it right here. Netanyahu is not happy with the coverage, and he is taking it.
The way that it's presented, unfortunately, in the New York Times and other, New York Times should be sued. I'm actually looking at whether a country can sue the New York Times, and I'm looking into it right now because I think it's such clear defamation. I mean, you put a picture of a child that's supposed to then represent all these supposedly starving children, yet they put in this picture of a child who has cerebral palsy. Then they took another picture somewhere else in other media, a child who had cystic fibrosis, got nothing to do with starvation, or another child that we actually sent to Italy to be cured. And Israel is accused.
But still, you can see there is suffering on behalf of people
suffering
in Gaza.
Yes, because Hamas is interdicting aid, exactly. And
this is the first time I support Netanyahu. Let them fight. I think they should both take each other down.
The New York Times
Emily,
and Netanyahu.
Emily,
Yeah,
how
let
do you
them
think
fight.
how do you think the America Firsters feel about the idea of a foreign government, suing an American newspaper over accurate reporting on said government? And then, I mean, obviously the ridiculous thing here is, as Ryan has probably covered better than anyone else, the New York Times has relentlessly towed the line for the Israelis and done their dirty work, and their big investigation into the mass rape hoax, and all the whole time they've done everything they can to whitewash what's happening in Israel for a liberal audience, and this is the thanks that they get.
Well, America First Griffin seems to be not on board with, or actually, you are on board.
I'm fully on board. I think they should sue each other. I think they should duke it out. Yeah, I mean, that's what they get. That's what you get. Well, never please these people.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, yeah. Even in this article that Netanyahu's upset about, the Times masthead, bent over backwards to humiliate the reporters involved and the editors involved by putting this update on the story. Mm-hmm. Basically, it wasn't a correction, but it was an update saying that then opens the door for Netanyahu to come after them, instead of just standing by the story and saying what I said. Yeah, of course, people, cerebral palsy, by the way, requires regular treatment. Has Israel been allowing in the medication that is required for cerebral palsy? No. This is all part of a holistic genocide. And so, yes, of course, somebody with cerebral palsy is going to be affected first by the ravages of starvation. But instead of saying that, they attack their own reporters with this silly update, which then opens the door for Netanyahu. When Sadeh Talon was being exposed as this systematic sexual torture chamber, and there was video of IDF soldiers raping a detainee that was about to be published, the New York Times was granted access to this dungeon, and they finally published it's this 3,000 word story that the last 5 paragraphs of which are just absolutely explosive revelations of the abuses going on at this prison. So they got the reporting out, but you had to read through the first 2,500 words of Israeli explanation for why these prisons are so important to their war effort. So they've been doing this cover for Israel, this entire genocide. And yeah, it shows what the payback is, like a defamation threat, which clearly is Netanyahu just trying to ape Donald Trump's approach to the media. But the problem is, for Netanyahu, he doesn't control the FTC, and he can't give mergers to media companies.
You sure about that?
Well, not yet, Ryan. We're going to get there eventually. So yeah, New York Times issued a response to Netanyahu's threat of lawsuit. For those just listening on podcast, children in Gaza are malnourished and starving, as New York Times reporters and others have documented. Mr. Netanyahu was referring to an update we made to a story about how the food crisis is affecting the civilian population. After publication, we learned a child shown in the story, in addition to being severely malnourished, also had pre-existing health problems. That additional information gave readers a greater understanding of the situation. Attempts to threaten independent media they're independent media, providing
I love that they
vital
call themselves
information and accountability to the public are unfortunately an increasingly common playbook, but journalists continue to report from Gaza for the Times bravely, sensitively, and at personal risk so that readers can see firsthand the consequences of the war. On that last line, Ryan, I don't know. I don't read the New York Times every day. Have they ever mentioned how many journalists have been killed? Like how many of like their fellow colleagues have been like murdered like almost every day in Gaza?
I mean, once or twice, but not in total. And no, they have not used their platform to defend their colleagues in the Gaza Strip.
It would have been easier for them to have to make the point that they just made in that copy. I mean, it's easy to dunk in the New York Times, but like in the original story, like it would have been easy for them to talk about the cerebral palsy and the malnourishment and how babies born.
And that's a good point.
Gaza,
and the reason they can't, I think, is because they're going in cold. Like they're coming in cold to this issue. And so it's all brand new for them. And so they're being tender about it rather than fulsome. And if you're fulsome about it, you actually get the full picture.
The other thing is there was another outlet that spoke with the mother of the child. I mean, in similar way that the Anne Frank died of typhus thing, you know, the way that that's so dishonest. This is a child who was born into war, whose mother was pregnant while this, you know, genocidal onslaught is ongoing. And so for many of these children who have pre-existing conditions and other comorbidities, many of those are brought on by the horrific conditions into which they were born and the stress that their mothers were under when they were attempting to birth them as well. So, you know, I think that has to be taken into account here when you're thinking about these incredibly vulnerable infants and babies, especially as we're going forward. And it's just, you know, what I think about too, I don't know, did you guys see the report on the trauma that every child in Gaza has suffered in the attempt to provide them mental care? I mean, that's without even wrapping your head around the psychological wounds that will never heal for the ones who are lucky enough to survive these horrors. You know, there isn't a person in the Gaza Strip who hasn't had people very close to them murdered. The number of child amputees, the number who have seen just, you know, their entire life has just been bombings, danger, famine, lack of clean water, medical care, etc. It really is difficult to wrap your mind around what the fallout will be, which brings it back to Emily, like your point about this supposed delusion that, oh, this is going to help us all be able to live in peace together. I mean, for these kids who are born into this, how do you think they're going to feel about Israel? How do you think they're going to feel about Netanyahu? And, you know, a population that is enthusiastically supporting their daily torture and, you know, and terror.
Well, yeah. And I mean, even if it's also infighting among Palestinians, that's not any better or any safer for the peace and safety of Israelis. And I think, you know, it's obvious if you follow this closely and you listen to exactly what Netanyahu says, what his end goal is and how that might be different from what Joe Biden, for example, is a two-state solution guy who is funding a war that was being waged by someone who's explicitly against the two-state solution. It was always ridiculous, and it was always going to get into a really dangerous situation that you're seeing exactly now. And I think Donald Trump I think he believes Netanyahu. I don't know. I mean, I think he does. I think he thinks that Netanyahu is right, that if you create some type of militarized buffer zone that looks maybe like the West Bank, but in Gaza, that you have a better situation for everyone, that's the only solution, and you can then develop it. And the development over time brings peace and stability and whatever. But it's just such a complete mismatch between what everyone else wants to see and what Netanyahu and his government want to see.
It doesn't appear to me that it matters much what Trump thinks, because
no, clearly
he's just at every turn, sure, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I mean, that's certainly the you know, what I've taken from this, including obviously with the Iran strikes. It just you know, I think Trump has outsourced his policy on this to the Netanyahu government. And I don't think that anyone should be surprised by that, given the amount of money that he took in from people like Miriam Adelson, who had, and also given his track record in his first administration of also going above and beyond what any other American president had even, who have all been very attentive to Israel's needs, but going above and beyond what any other American president had been willing to offer to the Israelis. So that's just continued apace. And, also he has been announcing for a long time his view of they should all be gone and we should have Gaza Lago. So, which was always simpatico with exactly what Netanyahu wanted to see and what the plan has been from the beginning. And that's what I think people really need to wrap their heads around is, you remember all this talk at the beginning of like, oh, there's no day after plan. There's no day after plan. They don't have any idea what they're going to do. And that was like the big criticism from the liberals was, oh, Netanyahu hasn't figured out what his day after plan was. No, he has an ideological goal. He's had an ideological goal in mind for a long time that has been carried out at, a slower pace in the past and various escalatory phases. And now he saw October 7th as an opportunity to really go for it. And now we're in the concluding phases of that. And you've got, if you've got France and Canada and saying, oh, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Okay, well, after it's too late,
great.
After it's already, obliterated. And then you've got, okay, Germany now is going to block arms sales, but all of it just is too little, too late. And none of it matters much unless the U.S. changes course, which there's no indication.
Yeah, the whole like Palestinian state recognition thing, it's like they're already doing land acknowledgements for Palestine, like preemptively. It's totally ridiculous. It's a bunch of rubble.
It's very dark, and I think well said.
And I think I think Netanyahu always had basically two exit strategies. One was he was just going to go all the way to full ethnic cleansing, or he was going to get stopped by the U.S. Basically every Israeli war since like 1982 or even before that, actually well before that, was stopped by the United States. And so Israel never developed a muscle for how do we end a conflict? Because they don't end the conflict. They shoot until they're told they have to stop by the people that are giving them the weapons. And I think that the Israelis were surprised that Biden was letting them go as long as they were. So why would they then come in and do Biden's job for him and come up with some plan to like wrap up the war and come up with some day after plan? Their plan was, okay, if they're going to let us do full ethnic cleansing, we're going to do it.
We're going to do it.
If they're not, they will tell us when it's over. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
One more thing I wanted to mention about the aid, just again to make it really clear for people before we can talk about Mahmoud Khalil and the controversy around his comments to Ezra Klein, or we could go in a number of directions next. But Bezalel Smotrich came out this week, and he's one of the most psycho members of an extremely psychotic government. And he said, you know what, I changed my mind. Actually, I get it now. And the quote unquote aid that's coming in, this is not to feed people. This is to help wage war. And so I actually I support it now. And this dovetails perfectly with what a lot of reporting has told us, but specifically what the GHF whistleblower Anthony Aguilar told us about what these sites are actually intended to do. He had the realization, because at first he comes in almost like very idealistic, like I'm here to feed hungry people, and this is a little chaotic and disorganized, but maybe I can be part of making things work more effectively, and we can feed more people who could be a better part of the solution. And then when he really has his breaking point, no pun intended, is when he realizes, oh, this is not about feeding people. These are shaping operations for ethnic cleansing. That's what's going on here. This is a military shaping operation. These things are death traps. It is not an accident that Palestinians are being massacred here. It is not an accident that there are routine stampedes that are killing people. This is all planned and decided. It's not an accident that they have to traverse 10, 15 kilometers through an active war zone, even to get here. This is all by design as shaping operations. So when I hear from our president that, oh, we're going to increase the number of aid sites, you need to think of that not in terms of, oh, they're trying to feed more hungry people. That is an escalation in these shaping operations to help effectuate the ethnic cleansing plan that the security cabinet just voted on and affirmed.
Mm-hmm. And while we're still talking about apocalypse stuff before we go to Mahmoud Khalil, Ryan, we've got a red heifer update here. Where are we on the how close to midnight
are we? How are the
end
times coming?
Yeah,
how many minutes to midnight are we?
This is truly terrible because I think a lot of us were hoping that this whole, human experience on the planet Earth was going to wrap itself up any day now, with the coming of the apocalypse, which is being, ushered in by Speaker Mike Johnson for the 5 red heifers that he and his friends in Texas delivered to Tel Aviv, which he appears to have gone to visit, this week in Shiloh, in occupied West Bank. The problem is there are precise requirements for what kind of red heifers you need to sacrifice to bring back the Messiah. They can't have any white hairs, no gray hairs. They got to be pure red heifers. When God
and
says,
from America, from Texas,
got to be from Texas. They can be fed antibiotics. I think.
Okay,
I think that's fine. But when God says red heifer, he means red heifer. And a lot of people have said, what about Randy Fine? No, like he's got splotches. Like he is not a pure red heifer. Stop. Randy Fine is not your savior.
Although he could feed Gaza for like a month though.
Yes. What about an orange heifer? People have said, we have an orange heifer here that we could send. No. What part of red do people not understand? Red heifer. The orange heifer will not do. So the update here from the Temple Institute just this week, incredible that Mike Johnson goes over there this week. And the same week, the Temple Institute, which is running this project, says all 5 of these heifers that were sent in 2022 to Israel have now been disqualified for impurities in I guess their red heiferness. So the Texas industry of trying to breed these perfect biblical red heifers, that's good news for them. So go buy red heifers, go long on red heifers. But these 5, which were brought over through a loophole to Israel as pets, I guess cannot be turned into barbecue now because they're supposed to be pets legally. Like there's an export ban. Interestingly, Texas appears to have some type of BDS where they will not export cattle to Israel. So I think that's something that the governor needs to look into.
They got to look into, or else they're going to have their federal disaster assistance.
No state aid for Texas.
Or a hurricane that hits Texas. They're going to be in big trouble. It seems like there is, Ryan, a capitalist angle here because there's a capital incentive to continue disqualifying these red heifers to increase the market for raising red heifers. So there may be some corruption involved in this determination. I don't know. I'm just asking
questions. Like Cartman went over there and put a little whiteout on the red heifer.
I'm just glad that we're beating out the Japanese with their Kobe beef. Finally, we're bringing some American USA grade back in the mix. Crystal mentioned Mahmoud Khalil, and who recently did he make waves on the Ezra Klein podcast? Is that the correct way to call it?
I'd say so. Or waves were made out of his Ezra Klein appearance. We'll put it that way.
Yes, as well said.
Waves were created out of his Ezra Klein appearance.
Yes.
Do we have that on the rundown here? Let's see.
We've got one here. Yes, it's childlike misreading of his comments by Barry Weiss and everybody else.
Well, it's not childlike. It's very intentional.
Right. It's a feigned childlike misreading.
Did you find
Gifted
it?
child.
I can pull it up.
Yeah, please pull it up, Crystal.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
I got it here.
To me, it felt frightening that we had to reach this moment. And
So just to be clear, Ezra has asked him what he thought about October 7th.
Yeah.
in the Palestinian struggle. And I remember I didn't sleep for a number of days, and Noor was very worried about like just my health. And it was heavy. Like I still remember, like I was like, this couldn't happen. And
what do you mean we had to reach this moment? What moment is this?
I was interning at UNRWA at that point, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency at the UN, at their New York office. And as part of my internship, my research and work was focused on, Palestine, on the situation in the West Bank and on Gaza. And you can see that the situation is not sustainable. You have an Israeli government that's absolutely ignoring Palestinians. They are trying to make that deal with Saudi and just happy about their Abraham Accord without, looking at Palestinians as if Palestinians are not part of the equation. And they circumvented the Palestinian question. And it's clear, it's becoming more and more violent. By October 6th, over 200 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces and settlers. Over 40 of them were children. So that's what I mean by unfortunately we couldn't avoid such a moment. And yeah, it was absolutely difficult, to see not only the horrific images, but also the response of Israel, because I knew that's what Netanyahu wants.
So there you go. And the response, Emily, perhaps you could give us a bit of an analysis of the response.
I'll put up Barry Weiss's response while Emily's
Perfect.
talking.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say I probably disagree with you guys on the content of that answer. Not that it wasn't. Not that it wasn't instructive and reflective of the viewpoint. I think it's unfortunate that the answer sort of meandered up to the point of October 7th when he was asked about October 7th. Don't particularly think it was wise of the Trump administration to make a martyr out of Mahmoud Khalil, but they did, because what they did to him was completely absurd and ridiculous. But to say that he was referring to we as in Hamas, as you have Ryan on the screen with Barry Weiss saying we couldn't avoid the slaughter of the Bibi children, that's obviously not what he was talking about. He was obviously talking about Palestinians. He was obviously talking about how Palestinians were sufficiently, Hamas had been sufficiently not militarized is the wrong word. I mean, it's obviously the right word because it's Hamas, but it had been sufficiently, what's the right way to put it? Provoked is how he's describing it. Because people felt desperate and they didn't have other options. And so, obviously that's reflective of what people in Palestine believe. So it's just, I think it is there's an intentional conflation being made between what he's saying, that he's as though he's speaking on behalf of Hamas. We just had no choice but to kill children. I think that's quite obviously not what he was saying, because even if he thought that was true, he wouldn't go on a New York Times podcast and say it as he's trying to advocate for his cause.
Well, let me just say this. I just made the point, and you just made the point too, Emily, that how do you think these kids who are being bombed and starved right now, how do you think they're going to feel about Israel in the future? What sort of actions do you think they're going to take in the future?
Yep.
Is that us endorsing those actions? Is that saying we support them growing up and killing the Jew? No. There's a difference between analysis, which is what he's engaged in, of yes, there was this, ongoing campaign, and you have the Abraham Accords, and it's a tragedy that had to get to this point. There's a difference between analysis and endorsement. And that is the thing that is being intentionally confused, I think, here, right, at this point.
Well, can I also just add super quickly that he's not, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of Palestinians who would say what happened, that was quote, unfortunate. They're not happy about what Hamas did on October 7th.
That's what he said.
Some people aren't. Yeah, that is what he said, yes. Yeah. And so it's not these things are mutually exclusive. There are a lot of people who say, look, now the world has rained hell on us for the last 2 years because of what happened, because of the violence and the cruelty. So it's not as though there's some universal Palestinian endorsement of October 7th.
Right. And who else has made that analysis among a long list of people? David Ben-Gurion, and then Moshe Dayan, famously at a eulogy at Nahal Oz, two of the most celebrated, figures in Israeli history. They said the exact same thing. You oppress a people, you brutalize a people long enough, they will eventually rise up, and they are not at all kind of unique in that level of analysis. Like the person who would say the opposite would be the weirdo who would have to explain how this situation would somehow be different than oppression throughout history that has led to, you either resolve it politically or it snaps violently. Like those are the two paths that we have for situations like this. So
and it's always worth noting that the peaceful paths that have been pursued have been met with, censorship and violence. And you talk about the Great March of Return, where
BDS,
you have Israeli snipers. When you talk about BDS, which, apparently if you don't buy sufficient amount of Sabra hummus, then you can't get, disaster aid from the federal government. So
I'm safe on that one.
You're good there. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Griffin.
And Barry Weiss's, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's an obvious thing to comment. When you close off every other avenue of potential, political change, where do you think you're going to end up?
Yeah. And Barry Weiss's claim there, I think, doesn't even deserve a response, but I'll do a quick one anyway, where he says he's saying that they had no choice but to kill the Bibis children would be like Barry Weiss supports the Israeli assault on Gaza, therefore she supports every killing of every child in Gaza. Like that also doesn't square either. And the difference there is that Barry Weiss actually does support the Israeli assault on Gaza. Nowhere is Mahmoud Khalil saying that he supported that. He generally supports the idea of armed resistance to occupation, but he understood. It's very clear if you listen to him. He understood immediately what Netanyahu was going to do in response.
Yeah,
and that it was going to be horrific on the scale that we're seeing. And he couldn't sleep for days. And he also talks about seeing how difficult it was to see the images of the atrocities carried out that day by Hamas. Like he's saying all of that. And they have used this clip to say that he's some Hamas supporter that needs to be deported. It's like, it's hopeless.
Yeah, completely. Well, guys, I have to run. My kids have open house today, so
no, you're not going yet, Crystal.
I get to watch this story before I go.
Emily, give us a little setup here.
Just sell me any one of your products to show that you're prepared to sell to anybody and not allow your anti-Zionism to decide.
Okay, so for people who are merely listening, this is a video of Alan Dershowitz on Martha's Vineyard trying to buy a pierogi from a beloved local pierogi seller who said,
good pierogi.
Yeah, they say that they denied Alan Dershowitz pierogies because of the Epstein allegations against Alan Dershowitz, and obviously Virginia Giuffre retracted what she said about Alan Dershowitz, but Alan Dershowitz was close with Jeffrey Epstein, and that much is not not disputed at all. So,
and helped him secure that sweetheart deal. Yes.
Oh, great lawyer.
I'm so sick of these pedophile litmus tests that pierogi stands.
This is cancel culture, and so Alan Dershowitz assumes that it's an anti-Zionist thing and is making a bold stand in front of the Martha's Vineyard community and trying to buy a pierogi. I think the quote he says is, "In the interest of bringing the island together," which is beautiful. And Crystal, I didn't want you to go without having a chance to laud Alan Dershowitz for his bravery and humanity in the face of apartheid pierogi dealers.
Always looking out for me, Em. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And also, if you're involved in an Epstein scandal, you can't be talking about islands, like bringing the islands together. Like, let's take that out of the vocabulary. I'm just trying to help you here. Sometimes a lawyer needs a personal lawyer.
I watched the director's cut of this clip.
I did too. The 5-minute clip. Yes.
Yeah, the lengthier 5-minute clip. And it was great. And the thing that I was really pleased to see was I wasn't sure what way the Islanders would go. I didn't know if they would be more behind Dershowitz, who's like, you were there, you protested at a Jewish community center or something was like the charge he's lobbying against them. And then you have two different Jewish people who come in to say, how dare you? Like, one of us, like, my relatives died in the Holocaust. You're not going to call me an anti-Semite. In any case, the other one really smacks him down. She's like, this is not a cross-examination. This is a conversation. And so I wasn't sure which side the Islanders would be on, but they were fully on board with the pierogi stand. They were fully pro pierogi stand.
The
people.
pierogi seller is Jewish, by the way. They put out a statement on this. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
you went deep on this.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say in the past I've done some reporting on Alan Dershowitz and his Martha's Vineyard situation.
Mm-hmm. He's been complaining about it literally for years.
He is despised on the island.
Yeah.
So he could have been completely in the right and the good pierogi completely in the wrong. And I think the Islanders would have applauded the pierogi people. My favorite line of the whole video, people should go find it and watch it, is somebody in the back is yelling, "Other people want pierogies too, man. Come on."
Well, here's the irony, is that Dershowitz is saying in this video, we need to bring the island together. And the irony is that apparently hatred of Alan Dershowitz has actually brought the island together and unified them.
2022.
So he has accomplished what he wanted to accomplish.
Martha's Vineyard Times 2022 headline, Alan Dershowitz is at it again. Chilmark resident says he's been canceled by the Vineyard. Like, this has been going on for a long time.
Well, because he had his book reading at the local library canceled over the Epstein stuff.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and he flipped out over that. Like, I read a book every year, and I always read it at the Martha's Vineyard Library, and how this is destroying the comedy here on the island.
This just eats him up, huh?
It does, absolutely.
It's tough. It's tough. But this is what the people of Martha's Vineyard have to worry about.
Yep.
Oh, wait. I do have one more headline, because this one's from 2018. This one is on Martha's Vineyard, a frosty summer for Alan Dershowitz. Oh, maybe they pulled it down.
Censored.
Oh, he threatened to sue him probably, and they're like, "Oh, can't say that."
Oh yeah, there it is.
Oh, there
on
it is.
Martha's
Oh,
Vineyard.
darn.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a Dershowitz flex. That when you try to pull up articles on him, they're all redacted or sued. That's pretty great.
Anyway.
Crystal, enjoy. Give your kids a pierogi today, Crystal.
I'm gonna do my best. Do my best. Hopefully, I won't be pierogi canceled.
We wish you
guys.
well.
I'll see y'all later.
See you guys.
See ya. So before we go into the paywalled second half, there is one thing on the public side I did want to pull up. Trump is got some good charts. He's finally got some charts and some numbers that make him happy, that make his heart sing.
He always has those. He's the best charts.
Yeah, whose job is it to make these for him? It's his favorite person, probably.
Well, they saved his life, truly. Like, not even
true.
sarcastically. Butler, that chart really did save his life. He loves to talk about that.
So, as we know, last week Trump fired the labor data official that tracks jobs throughout the country after some bad numbers. But Trump here now has some good numbers. Let's take a listen to this and then a second clip.
This one chart really says it better than anything. If you look at this is great. But this chart is pretty amazing right here.
Numbers go up.
Yeah. For the podcast listeners, the number is going up. They took the original chart and they flipped it upside down to make it go up.
All new numbers.
Wow.
Beautiful numbers.
He's feeling good about that. And then we also have sort of a new line from the Trump administration. This is from a Trump admin official here talking about how actually it was Biden who kind of got us into this number kerfuffle. Let's take a listen.
And I'll just very quickly go through these. So I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. Mr. President, that's a gigantic error. And I don't know if I'm not.
Might not have been an error. That's the bad part. If it was an error, it would be one thing. I don't think it's an error. I think they did it purposely.
Whether that, you may well be right, but even if it wasn't purposefully, it's incompetence.
Right.
Okay. So 1.5 million jobs.
All right. Case closed.
I mean, Ryan, you talked about I'm no expert in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'll be honest about that. But it also wouldn't shock me in any way if this lumbering bureaucracy was indeed incompetent. But you were pointing out the Doug Henwood tweet on Wednesday's show, suggesting that BLS actually is such a prized commodity, literally, for Wall Street that it's been historically not bad.
Right. It's not easy. Like, think about what they're trying to do. They're measuring, and BEA does the GDP, which incidentally, my great aunt Mimi used to work for the Bureau of Economic Analysis back in the 60s, 70s. She said actually that the only time in the history of that agency that they ever got pressure was from the Nixon administration. Didn't like their numbers and was pushing back. You're trying to take in pretty much real time in an economy that is in deep into the trillions when it comes to GDP, and an employment population that is in the over 100 million. You're trying to measure prices in this enormous economy, and you're trying to do it, pretty quickly and with as much accuracy as possible. And things like a pandemic, financial crisis, immigration surges, tariff policies, like all of these things that are these external shocks to the system, make it even more difficult to do. Everyone around the world admires the U.S. economic statisticians, like that they are doing the best job that they can, like from the left to the right. Like everybody is like, these people are good. They're doing, and do they make mistakes and have revisions? Yeah, they do. But there's since Nixon, there's never been really any accusation that they were putting their thumb on the scales one way or the other. And like Emily and I were talking about this week, the accusation is that they overestimated Trump's job gains over the last several months, and that is somehow mean to Trump, which that makes no sense on its own right. Like you're saying that they unfairly credited you with job gains that you didn't actually produce? Like what?
I thought they were saying that Biden juiced the number.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're saying now. But the thing that the thing they fired her over was the revision downward of the previous of June and May, saying that she had, because they said they overestimated the Trump job. Now they're retconning and going through her record and saying like, oh, you had this revision, you had this revision. But the immediate one was job growth was lower than expected in July. That made him mad, and they had revisions to May and June, and so he fires her. The charge there is that in May and June she lied and told the world that Trump's economy was better than it actually was. Why would she do that if she doesn't like Trump?
That's an interesting question, Ryan. But maybe this is a good segue to the premium section, because these are the things. It seems like it's one every week. There's an example of something like this that happened in the first administration as well, that I think it remains an unopened question as to whether this sets a precedent for future presidents, whether they're Republican or Democrat. Because the lawfare, I think we've already seen going in both directions over Trump. And I think we've seen certain norms like Pete Buttigieg or whomever will be out there like cussing, Gretchen Whitmer, and
yes, growing beards.
Yelling at the media. Whatever. Growing beards.
The beard cat is out of the bag.
That cat's out of the bag. We've seen some of those things that I think are obviously not going to be put back. It's toothpaste that's not going back in the tube.
Should I grow a beard and start wearing a trucker hat?
I think the beard would go great with
more normal.
The Slay
like
Salon nails.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Then your arrest record would be less surprising to people. But I think these are the things that I just wonder. Do we see I think it's hard to believe, but like, would we see a president Elizabeth Warren or right? Like, I just don't know. And I don't know if
she's too much of a nerd. I think she respects the nerds too much for that.
It seems, I know, but like it's not just this exact example, but like, do we go into court packing? Like Biden talked about in the campaign trail in 2020. These are the like genuinely really big unopened questions about more like government norms as opposed to political, cultural norms and legal norms. And that I think I just don't know what he's created, if it's just going to be unique to Trump's quirks or if it goes on.
I think some will be unique to Trump's quirks, and I hope, like for the U.S.'s sake, that this one is unique to Trump. I think a lot of the ratchets go only one way, but I feel like this one, because to Griffin's point, Democrats love process and they love the statisticians and the nerds
for now.
But B, they love Wall Street too.
Yeah,
and Wall Street, this is a red line for them. Like Wall Street needs these numbers to be credible and believable. Otherwise, what does the U.S. have to offer versus putting your money in the Chinese stock market?
You can see that in the CNBC interview with Trump. That it's like, I mean, this guy was full Trump, but he's like, bro, please, like, come on. What's going on here? It was probably the most confrontational I've seen, like a Trump-friendly interviewer.
Right, the CNBC
go in a minute.
Yeah. He's like, well, couldn't the tariffs maybe have had some bite when it comes to the jobs?
Like, what is maybe... this? Is pushback? Okay.
Yeah.
This is core. This is a core issue for them.
Yeah. Well, then that opens up the conversation about whether it's part of potential plan to de-dollarize, because that's if you start to cast doubt on
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, but if you're casting doubt on the confidence of the projections, then that would potentially help if you're trying to de-dollarize.
Yep.
But Trump is also sanctioning the BRICS countries and saying that nobody better de-dollarize. So I know. But his advisors. Why are we trying to make sense of this? Why do we kill ourselves trying to make sense of this, guys?
I've got enough Trump coin. We can get rid of the dollar.
I'm new media pool tomorrow, so if I get a chance to speak with the president again, I will make sure to ask him about whether he's de-dollarizing or re-dollarizing.
Yeah, show them an American dollar. Show them how beautiful it is. So we're going to get now over to the second half. We've got a lot of fun stuff packed in the second half. We might be talking a little bit about census rigging. We got to talk about the Chris Cuomo deepfake crash out with AOC. We absolutely have to. And we're going to do some AMA questions and maybe get to a little bit of South Park if we have time for it. So if you want to see that second half, it's breakingpoints.com. You can get a monthly membership there. You can ask us questions each week. And thank you all for signing up and supporting us. Breakingpoints.com. And every
subscription
to Breaking Points, when I'm on the show, it's considered the Griffin bump. And so I need at least 10 subscriptions an episode or I lose my job.
Or he shaves his mustache. Every time he doesn't get at least 10, we take one millimeter off the mustache. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that gets real dangerous in these days in this culture. So we'll see you on the other side in just a second. BreakingPoints.com.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.